Welcome to Uncovered. It's Wednesday. I'm Anthony. He's Ron. And together we are uncovering the MAGA propaganda that is not covered by the mainstream and corporate media, as you full well know by now. The news today, Ron, has been developing at such a pace that you and I have struggled to even sew this show together because there's new elements for our quilt. Well, that's a nice metaphor, isn't it? Much nicer than the reality of what's going on, which is that there is obviously a massive cover-up happening, trying to prevent these Epstein Files from being exposed because it turns out, as we've all known all along, that Jeffrey Epstein's best friend for at least 15 years is the current president of the United States. Is that a good place to start?
So much has broken in just in the last 2 hours, which I guess makes for a good show, but we're scrambling to process it all. We got the judge down in Florida on the grand jury transcripts. We got the press conference with Gabbard trying to distract everybody over about arresting Obama. We got Wall Street Journal releasing the report confirming that Trump's all over the Epstein Files. Where to begin? There's so much.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start with Tulsi Gabbard, maybe, because this is it's probably a good place to start. She's Director of National Intelligence, which is kind of ironic, and she's been compromised anyway. I mean, famously compromised through Syria and Russia and goodness knows what else. That's not even part of this story, is it? So here she is, stepping up during the White House press meeting, press conference, and there's been this kind of back and forth with just trying to, it's like gaslighting the media, isn't it? Like constant gaslighting of the media to try and blame the media for their coverage rather than for the reality of what's actually going on.
Yeah, I mean, this is a couple things kind of came together here, perfect storm.
Yeah,
which is, Gabbard about 6 weeks ago was on the brink of being fired, yes, according to all reports. Trump was furious at her for a couple of reasons, two reasons really. One was her testimony that she gave before Congress in March, saying that Iran was 3 years away from developing a nuke, and when Trump went ahead and bombed Iran and used the justification that he was relying on Israeli intelligence, that, they were about to develop one any day, the media kept playing that clip of Gabbard back in March, contradicting that. So that infuriated him. Then at the same time, virtually the same time, Gabbard put out that video on her personal account talking about, after the Iran bombing, we've never been closer to World War III and nuclear war, which Trump was reportedly furious about that because he interpreted that as a criticism of him by her, saying that he's endangered, the world. I think the only thing that saved her at that point was her very close friendship with Laura and Eric Trump. She's very close with them, and I think that they basically saved her, but she was hanging on by a thread.
Well, she went missing for a couple of weeks, didn't she? We didn't hear from her, and people were like, what's going on? Yeah.
And then she resurfaces with what? I mean, the ultimate distraction. It's like all of MAGA is up in arms. Trump's throwing all this stuff out there, trying to distract them. They're telling them they shouldn't care about this. They wouldn't buy it. They weren't buying any of his excuses. He needed something big. And what could be bigger than, rehashing Russiagate and suggesting that Barack Obama is guilty of treason and should be arrested and prosecuted. And, Gabbard produces this report, which is nothing new, but she conflates a couple of things to confuse MAGA.
Yeah.
And throws them. And look, I will say the influencers have bought it hook, line, and sinker. They went from, I'm talking about, your paid people on social media that as part of their coordinated influencer campaign did, for this whole week, shifted gears and was talking about that instead of Epstein. Do I think it's going to work completely? No, because I think it's going to make things even worse because there aren't going to be any arrests. They're all saying, when is Obama getting arrested? When is Comey getting arrested? When is Clapper getting arrested. They're expecting now not only a bunch of arrests in connection with Epstein, but a bunch of arrests in connection with Russiagate. And when there isn't, they're going to be even more furious than they were last month.
She's accused, just so people are clear who don't know the story, she's basically accused the Obama administration of investigating Donald Trump in that kind of handover period between 2020 into the inauguration of 2021, right? Is that?
Yeah. Well, let me explain the so-called smoking gun that they're all latching onto that she claimed. They declassified a memorandum that basically from the Obama administration from the last month of his term, which concluded that the Russians did not hack into any voting machines, any voting system. They were not able to change any votes or manipulate the 2016 election in that way. So what she's done is she's taken that, she's cherry picked that.
Yes.
And said, this proves that everything that they said to try and discredit Trump's win by suggesting Russian influence was all a lie. And this proves it. Well, of course, it doesn't prove anything, because what the reports also say is that Russia influenced the election in a million other ways. No, they didn't tamper with voting machines successfully, but they did a hell of a lot. And Marco Rubio found that to be the case. John Radcliffe, who is the Trump's DNI, found that to be the case. Mike Pompeo, Trump's CIA director, found that to be the case. So this is just complete insanity, but Trump is a drowning person right now. And of course, he and his henchmen have latched onto this and are blowing it up purely to distract from Epstein. But if they actually try to charge and impanel a grand jury to indict Barack Obama or some of his most senior officials, I believe it would result in obviously massive protests and firestorm, but I think also a massive landslide for Democrats in the midterms.
The other diversion that they threw out this week was the release of the MLK files. Yeah. So I mean, it's like anything with the word files on it is like a good enough distraction right now.
But again, that didn't work. I mean, everything that they put out didn't work except for this. I mean, this is something that's gotten some traction on the right, but again, it's making them more promises. It's getting their hopes up for big things again. How many times can they keep doing this and deliver nothing? I mean, and they're all saying that. I mean, you got these influencers that are saying, oh my God, this is huge, this is big, this is treason. When are the arrests happening? So they're already geeked up again. And if the arrests don't happen, and there's no court in the land that will allow this to happen, I mean, it's going to make this even worse. It's a temporary Band-Aid. It's a temporary distraction that is going to blow up in their face.
Well, there is a theme throughout all of this going right back to 2016. And that is that Donald Trump is a criminal, a lifelong criminal, who has kept company with other criminals, whether it be for, corruption, business purposes, or romances with women of varying ages. I mean, this is who he is.
Yes.
And trying to run from who he is, now we have a criminal government supposedly investigating itself and discovering that it is indeed criminal, so having to cover it up.
And this isn't something in a vacuum here.
Yeah.
We've got 27 different named, documented women who have publicly accused Donald Trump of sexually assaulting them.
Yeah.
We got the Access Hollywood tape where he brags on tape about assault, going up to women and grabbing them by their genitalia.
Yeah.
Just out of the blue, just grabbing them because
they let you do it. They let you do it, apparently, when you're famous.
He gave a deposition about that where he said, that is true.
That's right.
Stars are able to do that, and maybe that shouldn't be the case, but that's the way the world is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much evidence. There's the videos of him in the club with Epstein. There's all the photos. There's him going into he bought Miss Teen USA. Why did he buy Miss Teen USA? And we know that he bragged on Howard Stern's show about going backstage when they were dressing and how he's allowed to get away with that because he's the owner. We have him on Howard Stern and other shows in the past bragging about how sexy he thinks Ivanka is. I mean, there is if MAGA wants to turn a blind eye to all this, but this just corroborates what's in the Epstein files. And we don't even know really all the sort of details that are in there. But one thing we do know, for Trump to go to these lengths to piss off his base by hiding it, it's really bad.
Let's take a look at Tulsi Gabbard being interviewed on Fox about this diversion, which is investigating Obama and all these claims. Let's see how they're spinning it.
And I want to get to that right now because I've heard talk of a criminal referral. Are you referring this in a criminal matter?
We are referring all of the documents that we have uncovered to the Department of Justice and the FBI for a criminal referral.
Yeah. And do you believe that we will see prosecutions? I mean, our audience wants to know where this story goes from here. Will we ever see anyone held accountable for this incredible lie on the American people?
I will do all that I can, and we have whistleblowers, actually, Maria, coming forward now after we release these documents, because there are people who were around, who were working within the intelligence community at this time who were so disgusted by what happened. We're starting to see some of them come out of the woodwork here because they, too, like you and I and the American people, want to see justice delivered. So we're going to provide everything that we have, everything that we will continue to gather to the Department of Justice for that direct intent and that direct purpose. There must be indictments, those responsible, no matter how powerful they are and were at that time, no matter who was involved in creating this treasonous conspiracy against the American people, they all must be held accountable.
So do you expect, just to be clear, do you expect indictments and prosecutions?
I'm not a lawyer. In my view, we have the evidence to be able to move forward and bring about justice, yes, to prosecute and indict those responsible.
It's what's so funny about this to me is that you're basically watching a corrupt news organization on the side of Donald Trump supposedly try and impartially interview a corrupt director of national intelligence on the side of Donald Trump, covering up a story that has been created. Because I don't know about you, I'm thrilled to know that the Obama administration was investigating Donald Trump, because of course they should have done. The guy's a lifelong criminal and he's about to become the president. So, you know, it's good to know that at least the security services and the intelligence services were doing their job back in those days. But the whole thing, it's like, it's so meta, isn't it? It's like the corruption inside the corruption inside the corruption, and then the corrupt news source that is basically presenting this as being genuine. It's very hard for people to decipher what is real and what is not real. So really, I mean, we just need to explain to people that none of this is real. None of it.
Look, what she's doing is she's following the Dan Bongino's playbook.
Okay.
All the heat was on Bongino for a couple of weeks there, and all the MAGA people were trashing him.
Yeah, and he's assistant FBI
and
director.
What did he do?
So people know.
Correct. Yeah, deputy FBI director. So what did he do? He blamed Bondi. He put it out there. He took his day off, and he said he was upset and he put it out there that he got in a huge fight with Bondi and he was upset at her. And then what happened? Like literally overnight, all the hate and the venom from MAGA shifted from Bongino to Bondi. They all hated her. They were all calling for her to be fired, and they were all saying what a great guy Bondi was. Here's Gabbard now doing exactly the same thing. She's on the verge of being fired. They all hate her. Trump is mad at her. So what is she doing? Putting this on Bondi. Right. She's saying she said there must be indictments.
Yeah.
Well, that's only one person's job. Yeah. Pam Bondi. So what she's now setting this up for is, if there's not indictments, when she says there must be, they're all over Fox saying this. So this is all on Bondi. So Bondi has two choices. One, is to take her bar card, her bar license, and a match and light it on fire and basically ensure for history, posterity, that she will go down as the most corrupt, disgusting, horrible attorney general in history, likely disbarred if she tries to indict Obama or some of his senior officials on a charge that will be thrown out of court and laughed at. Or she can say she can do nothing, and she could not, and then have Tulsi Gabbard and all these other people say, hey, you know what? We had this great case, and Pam Bondi just won't do anything with it, just like she won't release the Epstein files. So once again, they're setting her up as the person to blame.
And in order to bring about another diversion, Pam Bondi has also decided to go missing, as demonstrated in this clip.
You have some news from the Attorney General's office.
I do. Thank you very much. And thank you all for being here with us today and having me. I do have a note from the Attorney General, from Attorney General Pam Bondi, that I wanted to share, which is the following. I'm sorry to miss all of my CPAC friends today, especially Matt and Mercy Schlapp, Senator Blackburn, and the wonderful team at the Tim Tebow Foundation. Unfortunately, I am recovering from a recently torn cornea, which is preventing me from being with you. I truly wish I was able to join you and support all of the work being done on this critical issue.
Does a torn cornea mean that you can't leave the house? As far as I'm concerned.
Fox interviews like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I mean, look, she agreed to do this conference a long time ago, before all the Epstein stuff broke. And it just so happens to be a conference about human trafficking and child sex exploitation.
You couldn't make this stuff up, Ron. It's ridiculous.
Where she is supposed to take questions from the audience of right-wing people who are crusaders against child sex trafficking. And she knows fully well now that if she shows up, this is not going to go well for her. She is going to get booed, jeered, heckled. It's going to go as badly for her as it could possibly go in front of what should be a friendly audience. And what is, she comes up with this lame ass excuse, a torn cornea all of a sudden. Okay, all right, sure. You know,
she's basically poked her own eye out with a sharp stick. That's what she's done.
If this was something she wanted to show up for, needed to show up for, she damn well would be there. So yeah, I mean, she disappeared for like 2 weeks when the Epstein stuff broke.
Right.
So
but all
this
of
is
this,
how she does it.
All of this suggests, with Tulsi Gabbard and certainly with Pam Bondi, and we're going to talk about Alina Habba a little bit later, but and Donald Trump and Dan Bongino, in fact, and all of them, is that when you have people who are wholly unqualified and unsuitable for roles in senior public service, in a president's cabinet, or indeed being the president, where everybody has got form, has history of criminal activity, Trump boasts about his indictments, like, you know, he's like, oh, they never indicted anyone else like they indicted me. It's like they indicted you because they had reason to. And this is the thing that is such a waste of your time, my time, and the American people's time, is that we're having to sit here and cover this soap opera. Meanwhile, the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell are having to live with the historical trauma of that. And they don't seem to be getting any attention or support during this. It's just so frustrating to me that as this plays out, we get no closer to justice.
Look, a couple months ago, there was no Democrats talking about this. There was no media talking about this. So, you know, they could try and blame the press, the media, whatever. It has nothing to do with Democrats or the media. This all came from the right. In fact, who is the person who lit the match on this? Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, when he got in his beef with Trump, he came out with the tweet and said, by the way, I'm going to drop a bomb right now. Trump is all over the Epstein files. Well, you know, they've been sitting there waiting patiently for Bongino and Kash Patel, who promised them that they were going to release the files. They've been waiting. They got these think of how they bungled this. The BS binder stunt with the influencers that pissed them off because it made them look foolish.
Yeah.
These are their allies, and they hung them out to dry and made them look like clowns in front of the whole world with these BS binders. That was Bondi. You got Patel and Bongino doing one interview after another, promising big things on Epstein. Then you got Musk dropping the bomb. Trump's all over the files. And that's how it all blew up. It had nothing to do with the media, nothing to do with Democrats. Now, have we piled on? Have we poured gasoline on the fire? Of course. I mean, we're all in now, but this was not started by us.
And in the simplest of terms, because they were on the outside before, the Bonginos, the Kash Patels, they are conspiracy theorists. And so they thought that there was this whole thing with Bill Clinton and all sorts of senior Democrats and people. So they just leaned into it. They never really considered the fact that Trump might be in there. Then they win the election. Then they get the job of actually running the FBI and being the assistant to the boss of the FBI. And they actually get access to all this classified material. And they go, oh, Donald Trump's all over it.
But we know that they assigned hundreds of agents to comb through the files specifically looking for Donald Trump's name. We know that now. And what they found out was, oh shit, we can't release this now.
It reminds me of that scene in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory where she wants the golden ticket so much that he gets all his factory workers to open every chocolate bar to see if there's a golden ticket until they get one. The reality is that it's not going to take much work to find Donald Trump in there. And now CNN are dropping new video showing, Trump and Epstein partying together. And also Trump is himself so bad at lying about this and causing diversions. I just want to show this clip of him kind of blaming Obama and all this stuff. Let's take a look.
No, we caught Hillary Clinton. We caught Barack Hussein Obama. They're the ones, and then you have many, many people under them. Susan Rice, they're all there. The names are all there. And I guess they figured they're going to put this in classified information and nobody will ever see it again, but it doesn't work that way. And it's the most unbelievable thing I think I've ever read. So you ought to take a look at that and stop talking about nonsense, because this is big stuff. Never has a thing like this happened in the history of our country. And by the way, it morphed into the 2020 race. And the 2020 race was rigged, and it was a rigged election. And because it was rigged, we have millions of people in our country. We had inflation. We solved the inflation problem. But millions and millions of people came into our country because of that. And people that shouldn't have been, people from gangs and from jails and from mental institutions.
I mean, if that wasn't the weave, I don't know what was. He literally did everything in that short sentence.
But the confession was, like 3 seconds in the middle of that clip.
Yeah.
That's where it comes. Because what he says is, this is really big stuff. This is, the crime of the century. And you should be paying attention to that and not this other nonsense. Okay. The other nonsense he's referring to is Epstein.
Yeah.
So that's admitting right there, like, why they're doing the Gabbard stuff. Because he's saying you, the media, the public, should be paying attention to this new Gabbard stuff and not pay attention to Epstein anymore. He just came out and said it. This is where I say, like, the guy is slipping a little bit, like, mentally, because, like, seriously, like 8 years ago, he wouldn't have slipped up and been that obvious about it. He would have been more subtle about, just saying, look at this over here. He wouldn't have come out and said, yes, you should look at this and not look at this over here. Like, he's just he's just making it so obvious what the play is here. And I have to believe, especially when I look at the polling on this, which is dreadful for him,
yes,
that the American people are seeing right through this. I mean, sometimes Democrats who are online on social media a lot get frustrated because it's like the right wing, cultist spin machine and Fox News and all that runs with these distractions. But there's no indication that the general public outside of that ecosystem is buying any of this.
Well, even the White House press pool are asking some quite good questions for the first time. Let's take a look at one of those moments.
And I think, who is saying that she would release this to try to boost her standing with the president? Who has said that?
Well, the president has publicly undermined her when it came to Iran. He said she was wrong. He told me that she didn't know what she was talking about. That was on Air Force One on camera.
The only people who are suggesting that the director of national intelligence would release evidence to try to boost her standing with the president are the people in this room who constantly try to sow distrust and chaos amongst the president's cabinet, and it is not working. I will just answer your question directly. I am with the President of the United States every day. He has the utmost confidence in Director Gabbard. He always has. He continues to. And that is true of his entire cabinet, who is all working as one team to deliver on the promises this president made. Does anyone else have questions for Director Gabbard?
Yes, I have a question. I thought you told us on day one that you wouldn't do any lying whilst you were going to have this job. I mean, what we're seeing is so obvious to people that are kind of clued in. The cover-up operation is going on at every single level of this regime.
It's so obvious. I mean, like they're denying now that Trump was upset at Gabbard. He said, as Caitlin Collins said, she doesn't know what she's talking about on Iran. Like, the most important moment so far of her tenure as DNI was Iran. And what Trump said is, on that subject, my DNI does not know what she's talking about on Iran.
Yeah.
So for Caroline Levitt to say, who could possibly be suggesting that Trump was mad at Gabbard?
Yeah.
Donald Trump said he was mad at Gabbard. I mean, if you don't want to believe all the reports from people quoting and citing senior Trump administration officials saying he was fuming at her,
go right to the horse's
mouth. He said
mouth.
it himself.
Yeah. So another way they've tried to kind of shut this down is by shutting down Congress. I mean, going to a point at which they just shut down early and send everybody home so that they can't have a vote on this is another very obvious diversion, isn't it?
Yeah, because, they had to get a certain number of signatures to bring this to a vote. And what happened was Thomas Massie, Trump's nemesis in the Republican Party, and teamed up with Ro Khanna, Democrat, on a bipartisan bill to really compel the Department of Justice to release Epstein Files. And the problem for Trump is, like, 9 or 10 Republicans, including people like Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, signed on to it and said, yes, we want this released. We don't care what Trump is saying about this. We want it out there. So it was going to pass, and Johnson could not stop it from coming to the floor before summer recess. So he was faced with the prospect that basically the last thing that was going to be dealt with, this at a time when all the Republicans were supposed to go back to their districts and campaign on the big, beautiful bill and how they accomplished and lie about everything about that. That was what they were supposed to be talking about during this 6-week summer recess. Instead, they would all be stuck talking about their vote to hide the Epstein files. And that's the last thing that Mike Johnson wanted. So the only thing he could do to stop it was send everybody home early and just say, instead of a 6-week recess, we're going to have a 7-week recess. And all the other business that we had scheduled for next week is canceled, so we can hide the Epstein files from the American public.
For the August recess.
So here's what I would say about the Epstein files. There is no daylight between the House Republicans, the House, and the president on maximum transparency. He has said that he wants all the credible files related to Epstein to be released. He's asked the Attorney General to request the grand jury files of the court. All of that is in process right now. My belief is we need the administration to have the space to do what it is doing. And if further congressional action is necessary or appropriate, then we'll look at that. But I don't think we're at that point right now because we agree with the president.
So no vote on this resolution before
No,
August
no.
recess.
We had this.
I mean, it's again, it's just so obvious. I just hope that it's as obvious to MAGA Republicans as it is to those of us who are not in the cult of Trump.
So his excuse is, well, we don't need to do this because as we speak, the Department of Justice is trying to unseal the grand jury testimony, and they're going to put that out. Even though, by the way, that's less than 1% of the evidence. They know that nothing was presented to the grand jury that dealt with Trump because they didn't need to present anything to the Epstein's grand jury about Trump back then. It wasn't necessary to get an indictment. So they know that. But, Johnson's excuse is, well, they're working on releasing these grand jury transcripts, so we don't need to do anything. Meanwhile, Department of Justice submitted a brief to the judge in Miami saying, we agree there is no legal basis in the law to unseal these transcripts. So literally, as Johnson is making that statement to Manu Raju at CNN, oh, they're working on releasing these grand jury transcripts, DOJ is arguing, it's admitting to the judge, no, you can't release these transcripts. And what did the judge do? Ruled, well, DOJ concedes, I can't unseal these. And he ruled today, I'm not unsealing.
Yeah, and that happened just before we
came on air. And that was Johnson's excuse for adjourning. Yeah. That's already gone.
We haven't even got onto the section about them compelling Ghislaine Maxwell to testify to Congress, which is ridiculous. Taking a hardened criminal, possibly one of the worst sex traffickers in history, and giving her the opportunity to kind of talk openly. It doesn't make any sense. We'll do that next. We'll take a quick break and come back and look at that here on Uncovered. Feeling your best starts with the right products, and for me that means Via. We're proud to have them sponsoring this episode. If you haven't tried them yet, you're seriously missing out. Whether you need to unwind, refocus, or boost your mind, Via is here to enhance your everyday and night. Trusted by over 500,000 happy customers, Via is changing the game in natural wellness, blending powerful, high-quality hemp-derived ingredients to deliver real, effect-driven benefits, whether you're looking to sleep better or have a better libido, improve focus, recover, or simply relax. Via has a tailored solution just for you. Via lets you fully customize your experience to fit your needs, whether you're looking to support your daily wellness routine, enhance focus and clarity, or unwind with deep relaxation. Via has you covered. From their award-winning effect-forward gummies to calming drops, every Via product is thoughtfully crafted, made with organic, lab-tested hemp, sourced from trusted, independent, American-owned farms. And the best part, Via legally ships across the USA. Discreet, direct to your door, no medical card required, and backed by a worry-free guarantee. Not sure where to start? Take Via's Product Finder quiz to get personalized recommendations tailored to your needs. It can take you less than 60 seconds to complete. So if you're 21 plus, treat yourself to 15% off and get a free gift with your first order using our exclusive code UNCOVERED at viahemp.com. Plus, enjoy free shipping on orders over $100. That's VIIAHEMP.com. We've all been there. You go to the doctor, get your blood drawn, and a week later you hear everything looks fine. Maybe they tell you to drink more water or exercise more, but that's it. No breakdown of your hormones, no insight into inflammation or toxins or nutrient deficiencies, just vague advice and a pat on the back. Superpower Health is a completely different experience. It's a revolutionary new kind of preventative care, more comprehensive, more actionable, and you can do it all from the comfort of your home. Here's how it works. Twice a year, Superpower sends a licensed professional right to your door to collect a comprehensive lab panel, or you can visit a nearby lab. Superpower measures over 100 biomarkers. That includes your heart, liver, thyroid, hormones, metabolism, vitamin, and even mineral levels. Then you get a personalized action plan based on your results, all beautifully laid out in their app, plus access to your own private medical team to help guide you. It's the same level of testing and insight that pro athletes get, but at a price that actually makes sense. Stop hoping you'll live a long, healthy life and start taking action. For a limited time, our listeners are getting $50 off an annual Superpower membership by using code UNCOVERED at checkout. Just head to superpower.com and use code UNCOVERED to get our exclusive discount. Your biology decoded, your blueprint activated with Superpower. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you. And links to our sponsors are in the description below. So just before we come on to Ghislaine Maxwell, the Wall Street Journal right now is reporting that the Justice Department informed Donald Trump back in May that his name appeared multiple times in the Epstein Files. So, they've had time. They've had time to kind of deal with this and methodically decide how they're going to manage the kind of public reaction to this, and yet they've just screwed it all up. And what I find so interesting is that they don't seem to possess any PR skills at all, do they? They just throw as much at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, this is distraction part two. So one was that they were going to release grand jury transcripts. Well, that's already gone away. That's not going to happen already. So the next distraction is we're going to get a statement from Maxwell. Just saying Maxwell. Well, of course, why would she talk to DOJ? She's serving a 20-year sentence. There's only one reason. There's only one, and that is to get out of prison.
Yeah, right? to cut a deal.
And people are talking about pardons. Look, don't listen. Anybody who's talking about a pardon, don't listen to them, because they're the typical social media legal people who don't know what they're talking about. I was a criminal lawyer for 30 years. I was a federal prosecutor. Okay. Yeah. Let me explain what the deal. There's no pardon here. There's something called Rule 35. Okay. And that's what they're angling for. And it's a very common thing. In other words, Trump is not going to pardon her or give her a commutation of her sentence because he's not going to get involved himself. He's going to have DOJ do the dirty work for him to keep his fingerprints off the situation.
And it's not a good look pardoning a sex trafficker, is it? It's like it's not a good look to pardon a sex trafficker.
Well, generally, but especially one who can implicate him.
Right.
So what a Rule 35 is very common, and it happens every single day in every federal courtroom all over the United States. And what that is somebody who's already been convicted, gone to trial, whatever, they're pled guilty, they're in prison, and they want to get their sentence reduced. And so they go to the government or the FBI or whoever, and they say, look, I have information about somebody. I can testify against somebody. I can help you out if you'll lower my time. This happens every day. And so that's what they're angling for. And that is the only reason why they would sit down, is because they want DOJ to agree to reduce their time. Now, look at it from each side's perspective on this. It's a very simple analysis. Okay, if Maxwell tells DOJ, Maxwell's attorney, you typically do it in a proffer. In other words, DOJ would say, give us an idea about what she's going to say. If her attorneys, who aren't stupid, say to DOJ, well, yes, she's going to say Trump was guilty. Trump, she brought underage girls to Trump. Obviously, they're not going to go through with it. They're not going to reduce her time. They're not going to give her a deal. In fact, she may end up suiciding herself at some point if they say that's what she's going to say. However, if she says, if her attorneys say, oh, yeah, she's going to exonerate Trump. She's going to say that Trump had nothing to do with all of this stuff. Well, okay, now we can talk. Now you're talking our language. Now we can sit down and have a conversation about this sentence reduction. So she has every incentive in the world to lie. There's only one thing that she can say to DOJ, only one thing she could say to DOJ to get her time reduced, and that is Donald Trump is innocent. If she says anything else, she's not going to get what she wants. So this is just so nakedly obvious to everyone with half a brain what's going on here. And nobody should be fooled, except for, the MAGA cultists.
She must have, or through her lawyers, she must have already agreed to say whatever they want her to say, because it's been announced that Trump and Pam Bondi are personally going to go visit her.
Not Trump. No, not Trump. I mean, Pam Bondi, maybe. Yeah. I doubt it. I think it's probably going to be Todd Blanche, Bondi's deputy, although it could be Bondi herself. But the bottom line is this, like, they've already said, look, her attorney has already issued a statement, and the statement says she's willing to talk, but we're still negotiating, some things first. Because, look, I've been in these discussions hundreds of times myself representing somebody, and they're not going to put like in writing exactly what you're going to get as far as time off, but these things are all like wink, wink, nod, nod agreements. Like, yeah, what they're going to do, this is all verbal. They're going to say, give us an idea what she's going to say about Trump. Okay, this is generally what she's going to say. Now the defense attorney is going to say, give me an idea about what you're going to do for her before we agree to go through with this. And then the DOJ will say, well, we can't make you any promises, but yes, she's likely to see a substantial benefit if that's what she says. That's how these things work. And those are the negotiations that are going on right now.
We have this statement that says President Trump has told us to release all credible evidence. If Ghislaine Maxwell has information about anyone who has committed crimes against victims, the FBI and the DOJ will hear what she has to say. Therefore, at the direction of Attorney General Bondi, I have communicated with counsel for Ms. Maxwell to determine whether she would be willing to speak with prosecutors from the department. I anticipate meeting with Ms. Maxwell in the coming days. Until now, no administration on behalf of the department had inquired about her willingness to meet with the government. That changes now. It was Todd Blanche that posted that, right? So, but the thing that, people seem to be missing is that, she's already been found guilty. She, the evidence against her and her previous life with Jeffrey Epstein, both as his girlfriend but also as his pimp, effectively, is well documented. Certainly, it's corroborated by so many of the young women who have, spoken about her in very explicit language. And so the fact that they're talking about her like she's some kind of star witness is so offensive, considering the heinous nature of her crimes.
So if she signs some kind of statement that they put out, or gives like a recorded recorded statement, where she says, yes, Donald Trump had nothing to do with any of this stuff. Seriously, who's gonna believe that in the context of this? Like, unless we've just become this incredibly stupid country, which I don't believe that we have.
Sure.
I believe that
they did vote for Trump twice.
A big chunk of it has.
Yeah.
But I mean, that is getting somebody to believe something just insanely preposterous. And to me, like, the people who hate Epstein and Maxwell, they're the ones who should be most disgusted by this.
Yeah.
And they're absolutely going to put out, no promises have been made. I'll just predict to you because I know how these things go. No agreements have been made, no promises. We've agreed to do nothing. Of course they have. I mean, that's all going to be a smokescreen. That's all going to be nonsense, because what they're going to do is they're going to wait until a year from now or so, and then they're going to file their Rule 35 motion to reduce her sentence when all of this stuff has died down. But of course, the problem with that is it's not up to DOJ. It's up to a judge, her judge. So in the end, they could recommend a sentence reduction, but her judge can go, no, I'm not agreeing to that. So she ends up getting double-crossed in the end anyway. But look, there's also implicit threats, I'm sure, being held over her head. Her co-conspirator, her boyfriend, died in prison. I'm sure she doesn't want to die in prison by suicide either. So she has to deal with that as well, those thoughts as well.
we also shouldn't underestimate how manipulative and conniving and quite, how she has the ability to outsmart these MAGA Republicans. Certainly if she gets into the witness stand in some kind of hearing, is that, she is a master manipulator, and she can turn on the taps. She's got, she is a really bad person. And giving her the opportunity to speak aloud is just asking for trouble. I mean, I made a video about it last night saying I don't think that this is going to play out as Donald Trump would like it to play out. She is completely untrustworthy.
When a prosecutor calls somebody to the stand, a witness to the stand, or takes a sworn statement and puts that out to the public, what they are doing is they are vouching for that witness's credibility. Because ethically, they're not allowed to call a witness to the stand who they believe is lying. And so that basically puts the U.S. Department of Justice in a position to vouch for the honesty and credibility of Maxwell in order to save Donald Trump. That appears to be where we're headed.
Trump has been kind of shitposting about it nonstop. I mean, you get a sense of his anxiety about this subject. Based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I've asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. This scam perpetuated by the Democrats should end right now. I mean, that's just one of literally dozens and dozens and dozens of posts.
Meanwhile, they wrote in the brief to the judge, you can't release the transcripts.
Yeah. Undermining the president of the United States because they know that he's a wrong'un.
This is Trump putting out, this is the very common pattern, which we saw this in the criminal cases the last couple of years, which is Trump says one thing in public to his base at rallies, and his lawyers say something completely different in court. We saw this with Rudy Giuliani, where he would go out and say one thing in a press conference and then go into court and say something completely the opposite. I mean, this is what they do. And, this playbook has worked for them with their base. It has fooled their base so many times in the past, and they're going back to it again. But the problem is the last line of what Trump said, they're perpetuated by Democrats. This is not a story that was generated or pushed by Democrats. It is a story that is pushed by his own base.
Am I right in saying that for all of that kind of faux outrage, there isn't really, from the MAGA Republicans and certainly, those in Trump's orbit and people who support Donald Trump, and the conspiracists, I guess, that kind of right-wing media sphere, they have no real interest in the victims of Epstein's crimes or trying to bring justice. I mean, this is all about trying to implicate people like Bill Clinton, who appeared on the flight manifest.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're convinced that the vast majority of customers, of clients, of Epstein, friends, are powerful Democrats. Yeah. I mean, and media and Hollywood, and they've become convinced of that from people like Alex Jones and the other Dan Bongino and the other conspiracy theorists. And they absolutely do not believe that Donald Trump or any other senior Republicans are implicated in this. They believe Trump's cover story, which is, well, yeah, I knew this guy. I had some casual contact with him. But as soon as I found out, that he was a shady character, I cut all ties with him. And they believe that story. The problem is they believed that cover story for years. The problem is that cover story is contradicted by what's in the Epstein files.
And now that they're in government, they have access to the very paperwork that they have been second guessing for all these years. It's so funny how you talk about Dan Bongino as like a right-wing podcaster. He's the deputy director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I mean,
well, and that's Trump's fatal mistake in all of this.
Yes,
is that I told the guys that today, and I wrote an article about this a month ago.
Yeah,
which is if Trump had simply not appointed Bongino and Patel, if he had simply appointed like a normal button down career prosecutor type, straight arrow FBI director who had said nothing about Epstein in the past, he could have just come in and ignored all the noise about Epstein from the MAGA base, or he could have just issued a short statement saying, that case is closed, it's dead and buried, I'm not putting anything out. And that would have been that would have had a little bit of squawking and whining, but that would have been the end of it. So, but his fatal mistake was he took two of the leading Epstein conspiracy theorists and put them in charge of the FBI. And that raised their expectations.
So they've brought this upon themselves.
All Trump's fault.
Yeah. The diversions that we spoke about earlier, there's been plenty more, like Trump posting crazy stuff just to draw people's attention away from the Epstein Files story. Let's talk about this one where he's trying to get the sports teams to kind of go back to their racist, offensive names of the past. He said the Washington whatevers should immediately change their name back to the Washington Redskins football team. There is a big clamoring for this. Likewise, the Cleveland Indians, one of the 6 original baseball teams with a storied past. Our great Indian people, in massive numbers, want this to happen. Their heritage and prestige is systematically being taken away from them. Times are different now than they were 3 or 4 years ago. We are a country of passion and common sense. Owners, get it done. There are no Native Americans calling for this. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah, well, usually what they can do is they'll find like one person that has like 1% Native American heritage and who says that they want it back. I mean, look, this is not, this is what Trump has done for years, which is, when there's negative press out there, a negative story or something negative about to come out, because he knows about these things ahead of time. Because why? Because the media will contact him to get his response. What is your response to this story that's coming out, that we're coming out with tomorrow? So he has advance notice. So he times these distractions, knowing when these stories are going to break. And on this Epstein thing, he's the number of posts that he's maniacally put out about all this crazy stuff has just been insane. I mean, I know most people aren't on Truth Social. They don't see all these things, but I do. And you see the volume of just insane. I mean, he put this stuff out about the Redskins. He put out, Coca-Colas. We're going to switch from corn.
Yeah,
corn
I've been
syrup,
speaking to Coca-Cola about using real cane sugar. Yeah, I mean, he's describing a Mexican Coke, which is already being sold. He's announced this as a win. And meanwhile, Coca-Cola are not going to stop selling their regular Coca-Cola. They're just going to add this, so they're just going to make more money because there are more options on the shelves. And Trump's like, win, win, win.
And what's funny about that, too, is like, the United States imports almost all of its sugar from places like Brazil and other countries where we're tariffing the hell out of it, right? So, but the high fructose corn syrup is produced domestically in Republican states like Iowa and Nebraska.
Only the best stuff is made in America.
And Illinois, and that's a Democratic state. But the bottom line is the corn farmers are largely Trump's voters. So he's talking about we're going to get the largest, user of high fructose corn syrup in the world and get them to start using sugar imported from other countries instead of corn syrup from American farmers. That makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, this is it's all nonsense. I mean, he put out a video of a woman in a bikini catching a snake, which was AI. I mean, it's just one insane thing after another, hoping against all hope that he can divert their attention away to these shiny objects. And I monitor all these people in the MAGA base. I see that some of these things work. They sometimes work for an hour. They sometimes work for a day. And in the past, these things have always worked for him to divert their attention away from whatever story is breaking. And they do it with their coordinated media teams. And I know the people who run these teams, who put out the messaging, who get it all coordinated with each other, and their bot farms that pile in and do the responses. It's a very sophisticated operation, but it's just not working on this particular subject.
I mean, he even went as far as to post AI images of Barack Obama being arrested and Obama in a jumpsuit, in an orange jumpsuit. And I mean, stuff that you would expect some kind of, keyboard warrior in some random place on the planet to do.
Like a QAnon person.
Right.
Yeah. It's like it's QAnon.
Living in the Philippines or something. Meanwhile, this is coming out of the White House. I mean,
the President of the United States.
What do you think Barack Obama
seriously
is thinking?
Alex Jones's social media account is more normal right now than Donald Trump's.
Yes. It's so screwed up because what it's doing on the world stage and everybody is watching is it is diminishing America's standing day by day. And you only have to look at the numbers on tourism. No one wants to come here, Ron. Numbers are down.
Terrible.
Border crossings from Canada to the US are down nearly 40%. And so, it's not just people who don't want to have their phones snatched at the airport or have, who have questionable immigration status, or maybe people who have brown skin and are worried about being caught up in some kind of ICE raid. And aside from the fact that Trump is shit-talking all of our allies, being so abusive and aggressive, I mean, saying stuff that like the European Union hates America and it was only created to kind of take over America, all this stuff. I mean, this is affecting people. No one is going to want to come here. And then the airlines are going to start to go out of business, and consequently there won't be enough money circulating. The economy won't turn at the rate that it was. Everything he says has an effect. And I mean, even the stock market is taking a bit of a step back and thinking, let's just let him mouth off. We don't want, because they can't keep up with it. Otherwise, the markets are
they can't. They don't react anymore to what he.
They've just given up on it because he's nuts.
By the way, I said Trump's social media account is even crazier than Alex Jones's right now. And I'm taking into account that Alex Jones posted last night that Ozzy Osbourne died of the COVID vaccine, by the way. So,
I mean,
and Trump's account is even crazier than that.
Yeah. It just goes from bad to worse. Okay, we've got another quick break. Then we're going to come back and talk about Alina Habba, who has been demoted, it seems, and also this news from FEMA that one kind of senior FEMA operative is resigning in protest of Kristi Noem's handling of the Texas flooding. We'll do that next here on Uncovered. Once you taste food from Cook Unity, you'll just crave those dishes over and over again, as Cook Unity was made for adventurous eaters with countless global cuisines from 160-plus award-winning chefs. Explore an ever-expanding menu of small batch meals, all tailored to your lifestyle. Explore an ever-expanding menu of small batch meals, all tailored to your lifestyle, dietary needs, and cravings. You get ready-to-eat meals delivered directly to your door by going to cookunity.com/uncoveredfree, or you can enter the code uncoveredfree before checkout for free premium meals for life. You'll find you snack less and have more energy throughout the day, which is why Cook Unity is better than ordering takeout or even home cooking your meals. Their roster of all-star chefs include those from the Food Network, James Beard Award winners and acclaimed restaurateurs. They balance bold flavors and nutrition in their handcrafted meals, which are freshly prepared, delivered to your door, and never frozen. You can personalize your menu by navigating the easy-to-use platform, filter by chef, protein, cuisine, or dietary need to find meals that satisfy your cravings and stick to your health goals. Meals are delivered fully cooked. You can heat them in as little as 5 minutes in the oven or microwave. Enjoy high-quality culinary masterpieces for a fraction of restaurant or takeout prices. Subscriptions start as low as $11 a meal. Skip deliveries, pause, or cancel anytime. Get what you're craving. Try the freshest, best-tasting meal delivery made by your favorite celebrity chefs. Go to cookunity.com/uncoveredfree or enter code uncoveredfree before checkout for free premium meals for life. That's free premium meals for life by using code uncoveredfree or going to cookunity.com/uncoveredfree. Terms and conditions apply. Go to cookunity.com for details. The hardest part about cooking or barbecuing meat, steaks, chicken or fish is being tethered to a hot stove, sweating, constantly checking it. Well, those days are gone. I got a Chef IQ Sense and I'm ready for the Food Network. Chef IQ Sense is a brilliantly simple cooking sensor that goes into whatever I'm cooking. It's kind of like a meat thermometer, but wireless and way smarter. It takes the stress out of not knowing if your meat will come out any good. You just enter whatever you're cooking into the Chef IQ Sense app, steaks, chicken, fish, whatever. Choose exactly how you want it cooked, well done, medium rare, and Chef IQ Sense continuously monitors and predicts precisely when the food will be done. No opening a hot oven, no sweating over a hot barbecue or frying pan. You're free to kick back, visit with guests, do whatever else needs doing. Then Chef IQ Sense sends an alert to the smartphone when the steaks, chicken or seafood are cooked to order. Just the way you like it, no more guessing. It's the world's smartest, simplest to use wireless cooking sensor, and the best news is they just announced a flash sale. You'll need to jump on this. Summer grilling season is here, and Chef IQ Sense makes you a grill master. During their flash sale, you'll get 15% off. So visit chefiq.com and use promo code UNCOVERED. That's chefiq.com, promo code UNCOVERED. Ron, talk to me about Alina Habba. She was Trump's personal attorney for some of his legal cases. I think prior to that, she was like a parking ticket lawyer, wasn't she? And she kind of got elevated when Trump won this last election to a kind of very senior position, which she wasn't really qualified for. She certainly talks the talk, doesn't she? You know, and we've spoken before about how she presents very well. And Trump loves this, doesn't he? Kind of loves anybody who is good looking and well turned out and has had their nails coiffured and their hair painted. So, you know, just tell us what's happened to her in the last 24 hours.
Well, first of all, it's very unfair for you to say she was a parking ticket lawyer because she represented parking garages.
I'm so sorry. I mean,
you got to be fair. Right?
Yeah. So, I hate to misrepresent people.
So, yes. I mean, look, the United States attorney, there's 90 United States attorneys in the United States. So these are regional offices to be in charge of all the federal prosecutors in a region. And they also have oversight over civil rights, voting rights, you know, local agencies as well. It's a extremely important, prestigious job that people, you know, really spend their whole careers. Typically, the people who get appointed to these positions by the president are somebody with a prosecutorial background, not necessarily career prosecutors, but people that are extremely accomplished in the law. They've been DAs or prosecutors in the past, U.S. attorneys in the past, assistant U.S. attorneys. And then they went to prestigious law firms, became senior partners, or they've even been judges. They have these incredible resumes to get these positions. And Alina Habba has none of that. She has none of that. She has no background in criminal law other than losing her only criminal case, which was Donald Trump, you know, in New York. And, you know, just embarrassed. She demonstrated, by the way, in those cases that she doesn't know anything about the rules of evidence or criminal procedure or anything. So, of course, Trump makes her the United States attorney for the entire state of New Jersey, right? So clearly unqualified. And you know, when you get these interim appointments, it's a 120-day deal. So you got to be confirmed by the Senate in 120 days. And she's not confirmed, and she can't be confirmed because she doesn't have the votes. There's just no way. There's enough Republicans that will not vote for her that she's not going to get confirmation. So what happens when that interim appointment runs out is usually the president will appoint somebody else. But of course, you know, we're talking about Donald Trump and he's not going to do that. And so then what happens? Well, then it goes to the district judges for that area. There happens to be 17 federal district judges in New Jersey. And they get together and they vote. And they can vote to extend and keep her on the job on an interim basis. And they voted to fire her, to oust her, get rid of her. She's completely unqualified. and they appointed the first assistant, the number 2 person in that office. In other words, the first assistant is typically the career prosecutor who spent their whole life, their whole career in the office, working their way up from a junior position, typically holding supervisory roles, chief roles, prosecuting hundreds of big cases. First assistant is generally the most qualified, prestigious career person who's been with the office for 20 or 30 years, and that was the case here. So they appointed this person, who, by the way, is a Republican. They appointed. And what does Pam Bondi do? Lashes out and fires that person. Like that person is incredibly qualified, talented career prosecutor, was fired from the Department of Justice by Pam Bondi. She did nothing wrong, no fault of her own, just because the judges of that circuit felt she was the most qualified person. That resulted in Pam Bondi firing her.
This is an example of the lawlessness of an authoritarian government.
Yep.
Where this kind of stuff Putin would do.
Yep.
Just where you completely ignore protocol and the law, and you just take matters into your own hands. And it's, I was trying to explain to somebody, so much.
This person did nothing wrong.
Right. But this stuff is an example of the erosion of justice and rights in America. And a lot of this stuff is invisible. So, if you are not subject to ICE removal, or if you haven't broken the law, then you could probably carry on not really kind of noticing. But what I try to explain to people is that all of these changes and all of this behavior that is going on behind closed doors is eroding the institutions that have built America and kept it safe. And it also sets precedent for future positions to be treated in this way too. Let's look at the post that Bondi put out. She said, Alina Habba has been doing a great job in making New Jersey safe again. Nonetheless, politically minded judges refuse to allow her to continue in her position, replacing Alina with the first assistant. Accordingly, the first assistant United States Attorney of New Jersey has just been removed. This Department of Justice does not tolerate rogue judges, especially when they threaten the president's core Article 2 powers. I mean, you were saying earlier about the difference between, just like who Pam Bondi is as an attorney general. You compare her to Merrick Garland, just two individuals, right? One who is so by the book to the point that he didn't investigate Trump when he should have done because he didn't want to look like he was biased in any way. And look where that got us. And she couldn't be more opposite to that type of role, what she brings to the role. She's all in with the partisan.
I mean, this is just it's just shocking. I mean, that she would, I fully expected her to complain and argue and cry and bitch about the decision made by the judges. But to end the career of a talented Republican who wasn't lobbying for the job, she wasn't out there criticizing Habba. She's working hard every day doing her job. And for her to be fired and have her career ended in the Department of Justice simply because 17 judges thought she was the most qualified attorney in New Jersey to run the office, it's outrageous. So, where do we go from here? I mean, Trump is probably going to appoint someone even worse. Yeah. That's usually the pattern.
Yeah. So it'll be someone from Fox News, probably. It'll just be another kind of performative role.
Although, I'm not sure how you can get worse than her, but so where does she go from here? Is she going to get some other job, the senior advisor to something? Who knows? I mean, it's just it just shows you how. Yeah, we went from Merrick Garland, by the way, who, what was Merrick Garland was a U.S. attorney like we've had. I mean, a attorney general like we've had many attorney generals like Merrick Garland in the past.
Yeah. And he was a Supreme Court judge nominee as well.
Very deliberative, did everything by the book.
Yeah.
And the problem is that these are extraordinary times when those that playbook, that way of doing things doesn't work. And it's the same frustration we have with Schumer or Jeffries or, DNC chairs. It's like, you've got to understand that the way you've trained or believed or thought that your role should be is different now because you're dealing with such an extraordinary threat to the Constitution, to the country.
Let's see Alina Habba on Fox talking with Sean Hannity.
Well, my reaction to those comments is very simple. I believe in separation of powers. You are not allowed to influence or try to influence the judiciary and federal judges. You are not allowed to use open investigations to intimidate. You are not allowed to tell a U.S. attorney, frankly, prior, that if you cross a red line, you will find out, Sean. But that is the behavior that we are seeing. It is inappropriate. It is obstruction. It is wrong. You can't do it. And the separation of powers is so important because it prevents tyranny. It's exactly what we're not supposed to see. You should not be directing federal judges to reject. I was appointed by Pam Bondi. I was nominated by President Trump. They have no business interfering with the federal bench in the state of New Jersey. And we're seeing a stall tactic with the blue slips, frankly, which then lands this in the federal jurisdiction where they have to decide whether to have us stay for continuity. And if you're in a blue, in your situation where you have people that are listening to Hakeem, you got a real problem.
Yeah. What about
the irony of her claiming that that America is potentially falling into tyranny if Democrats behave in this way? I mean, we're in the tyranny. She brought it.
It's funny to say you shouldn't pressure judges into making a particular decision when all throughout 2023 and 2024, that's all we saw her and Trump do is threaten judges, threaten their families, go after their children, their wives, their spouses. I mean, that was their entire playbook.
Yeah. Well, Hannah Dugan was arrested, for goodness sake.
Personally attacking judges to influence them. Yeah. I mean, so that's rich. But, just what she's talking about here is this. When the mayor of Newark had the run-in outside the ICE facility, and a lot of the Republicans were calling for him to be criminally charged, Hakeem Jeffries said, if you F around and find out, if you charge the mayor of Newark for what he did, which was nothing, then you're gonna find out that something bad is gonna happen if you break the law and you do this. And she did it. And then 3 weeks later or so, she had to drop the case, and he filed a lawsuit against her for false arrest, which is still pending and depriving him of his civil rights. So what she's saying is, and so when this vote was coming up, Jeffries took to the floor of the House and said, look, he urged the New Jersey judges to vote against her. And that's what she's complaining about. Yeah. She's saying, he warned me that he would get me. And if I indicted the mayor, and then he made this move. But look, the New Jersey judges did not remove Alina Habba because of what Hakeem Jeffries said. Okay, they removed. I mean, part of the reason why she got removed was because she indicted the New Jersey mayor for no reason, and then was forced to drop the charges and got sued.
Right. We should remind people he went to a ICE detention center to check on the quality of the facilities. And because,
they people said he obstructed justice.
That's right. I mean, and there's so much video evidence of that as well.
So, I mean, that was part of the reason why she was removed. It had nothing to do with whatever Hakeem Jeffries said.
Yeah. Does that mean, and does it suggest to you, with your experience in the law, that the judiciary is kind of holding at this moment? Because, the pessimists will be like, it's everyone is folding to Trump. But does this suggest that there is still a little bit of, just a tiny little bit
until we get to the
left.
Supreme Court.
Yeah.
I mean, these are lower level district court judges, and district court judges have been consistently ruling against the Trump administration on one thing after another.
Which is why Trump wants everything to go to the
Supreme
Supreme
Court.
Court.
When these appeals from these decisions reach the Supreme Court, they get reversed a lot.
I tell you, the legal system in this country is so weird. It is just, to me, as an outsider, it doesn't make any sense. The fact that things get kicked back all the time, ping, 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 up and down, and I don't know. It's another conversation for another day, but it's the system that we have to work with. Let's talk about FEMA, because this is a very interesting twist, isn't it? After these horrific, climate change caused floods in Texas that nobody is blaming climate change for. One of the kind of senior search and rescue chiefs has actually resigned because of his frustration with the way that Kristi Noem has handled the rescue and recovery process, right?
And she denied this. Look, we said this at the time, like this should have never happened. This whole situation of the early warning systems and all that. And, Democrats were pointing out there was a lot of issues going on with FEMA and with the response. And all we heard from Noem and all the Republicans is you're politicizing a storm.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, of course, Trump and the Republicans politicized every storm and every disaster for 4 years.
Yeah.
But, when Democrats do it, they cry and they complain. Fine. But, it's obvious that this should have never happened. There should have never been 100+ deaths caused by the storm. So a report had come out a few weeks ago, a CNN report, that from sources behind the scenes who said that the search and rescue teams, which were requested immediately as soon as the storm happened by local officials, were not sent there for 3 days. There was a 3-day delay. And the delay was caused by a new policy that was implemented by Kristi Noem specifically, personally, that said that any request for FEMA assistance that is going to cost $100,000 or more must be personally approved by Kristi Noem. And this was not approved by Kristi Noem for 3 days.
Yeah.
So zero search and rescue teams were sent to this storm to rescue and search for people for 3 days. And when she went on TV, went on all the Sunday shows, when that story came out, she denied the whole story.
That's right.
Fake news. CNN is a lie. They lie about everything. This is all fake news. Because, of course, they were anonymous sources. But now we have, a month later, unfortunately, confirmation, because the guy who is in charge of the FEMA search and rescue teams resigned his position in protest and said that the reason why he resigned it was exactly because this happened. And he couldn't sleep at night. He couldn't live with himself anymore if he stayed in his position, knowing that not only were his teams denied the ability to go there when they were needed, but that Noem was out there publicly lying about it.
It's so very sad. A lot of this stems from, putting the conserve in conservative, doesn't it? This idea that spending money ahead of time or in advance is somehow wasteful. And apparently there was an early warning system that, was in the budget, but the Republicans refused to vote on that and to confirm it. And so, I mean...
But Democrats are the bad people for
bringing it up.
Things out.
Yeah.
Because we're politicizing them, right? No, what we're saying is the local officials are all Republican. The state officials are all Republicans, and the Republicans are in charge of FEMA. And this disaster happened that should not have happened. And we are pointing out the reasons why. Because what we're trying to say to these people is, hold your elected officials accountable. Don't believe their BS. Don't believe their propaganda. When they're all down there praising each other, Abbott is praising Noem, and Noem is praising Abbott, and Trump is praising, and the sheriff. They're all patting each other on the back.
That's all they did, really. That's
what they do. They circle the wagons, and we're out there saying, no, this is a debacle.
Yeah.
You know, and here it takes this FEMA chief to finally resign to prove. Now we have a face and a name attached to all the stories with anonymous sources. He probably was the source for the story.
Again, it brings back this idea that all these unqualified people, like Kristi Noem, you know, it's like cosplay. And we know she's into cosplay. This idea of playing the role, and Trump does it as the president. He pretends to be the president like it's a reality TV show, like he's just, you know, still a kind of game show host. And, you know, even when it comes to tariffs, you know, this idea of, he was asked the other day, you know, how do you come up with these numbers? Oh, it's a vibe. I just have a vibe. It's just my hunch.
That's right.
Like, there is absolutely no weight placed on the importance of their jobs in terms of lives, because every time he's picking a random number of a tariff, it's causing families to suddenly feel destitute because their whole livelihood is gone all over the world, in different nations as well as in the US. And they don't seem to understand the role and the responsibility that they are not play acting. This is a real job, real lives are involved, and it doesn't seem like they learn either. You know, he didn't learn from announcing the tariffs back in April, and now he's done it again and caused the whole world to turn on its head. I mean, it's so sad to me that there's just
until
no
they're held
conscience.
accountable by the courts, the voters, then there's no incentive to stop.
No.
And they really haven't been held accountable.
No. And as far as I see it, you know, I pray that we can get to midterms and people can have their voice, but I just fear that this lot, just the pattern of their corruption is such that I just cannot see them even allowing midterms to be a genuine vote on their track record so far, you know, for a couple of years. I just can't see them doing that. And we really, you know, I don't want to be pessimistic about it, but it's just not in their nature to do the right thing.
No, you know, I agree, but at the same time, like, this is a fine line right here, because every time I talk about the midterms, I've said this before.
Yeah, we discussed this a bit last week.
I get this. Oh, we're not going to have midterms. It's all rigged. Well, you know what? That's a self-fulfilling, self-defeating prophecy.
Sure.
And if that really is the attitude of Democrats, then we have no chance.
Yeah.
We're lost.
Yeah.
So every time I hear that from people, I push back and I say, yes, they're going to try and do a lot of bad shit. They're going to try and rig. But the more we hand wring and say, oh, everything is lost, we're going to lose, you know, they're going to rig it, then that's a self-fulfilling.
Yeah. I mean, I'm saying
prophecy.
it because I want
it's
people...
like saying, it's like being a participant in an athletic contest and saying, I have no chance because the referees are against me.
Right. So there's no point
I've
in taking
seen
part.
athletes do that before and they always lose.
Yeah.
So I refuse to do it.
Yeah, no, I'm not coming at it from that perspective. I'm coming at it from a perspective of vigilance. Whereas I want people to recognize that these people are tricky.
Yeah.
And that if you don't vote and you don't also chase your vote, that's the other thing. It's like, you know, there are websites where you can go to make sure that your vote got counted and where it's gone and all that. Like, we all have to take responsibility for our vote and to really, you know, to push back.
I agree that needs to be the response. Unfortunately, I think it's not from some people, but look, the example for this is the 2020 special elections of the Senate in Georgia.
Right.
When Trump was out there telling the voters in Georgia that the election was rigged, and a huge chunk of Republicans did not show up for that John Ossoff special election.
That's right.
And he won. And so I fear that if Democrats keep putting that stuff out there, that, oh, there's not going to be midterms, everything's rigged, that we're going to be in the same position that the Georgia Republican Party was in 2020, where our people are not going to show up. And so I just wish that people wouldn't keep saying things like that.
Yeah. Well, so how do we, with that in mind, how do we, because to ignore it is not the right thing to do.
No, you can be vigilant.
So
what I would say is point out specific examples. Okay. Point out, don't just go, every time I say, look, this is what we need to do in the midterms, guys. Look, this is positive. This is good. We need to organize. We need to do this. And I get back, oh, we're not even going to have midterms.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like so defeating. It's so deflating.
Right.
It's like, man, we're trying to get organized here. We don't need that shit.
No.
If I was a coach of a team, I'd kick them off the team, to be honest.
People want to be led in this moment, and
so
they want
specific.
To know what to do.
If you don't think there's going to be midterms, tell us why and what we can do about it. Don't just bitch and complain, because I almost think a lot of these people are bots. They're bots being put in there by the Russians.
Yeah.
I'm more inclined to, if you're out there saying we're not going to have midterms, there's no hope, I'm more inclined to believe you're a Russian bot than an actual real
right.
Democrat.
Yeah.
And they may be.
So the messaging needs to be about vigilance and taking responsibility for your vote, and not thinking that your vote doesn't count, and not thinking that it's not worth going out to vote. And because, we've talked about the numbers so many times. I mean, some say that 90 million people didn't vote in the last election.
Yeah.
And the suggestion I make is
great
that,
turnout last time.
Right. So and the turnout is always pathetic. It's always somewhere between like 60 and 70%, isn't it? And it's just not enough.
Lower in midterms.
Right. It's not enough to warrant change, especially when you have an authoritarian takeover of government.
Look, and I believe Republican turnout is going to be down. I absolutely do. Trump is not on the ballot.
Yeah.
A lot of these MAGA people are not going to show up to vote for John Cornyn.
Right.
Or, they're not going to be enthusiastic.
Well, they think it's a done deal, don't they? They think that Trump's in and that's it.
Their turnout's going to be down. I fully expect Democratic turnout to be an avalanche, because look, there's two things that motivate people to show up in midterms: anger and enthusiasm. So you got to have one or the other. If you have both, that's great. In other words, anger at what's happening motivates people to show up.
Yes.
Enthusiasm for your own candidates
yes.
also motivates people to show up. But anger is a more powerful motivator. And Republicans are not angry at Democrats because Democrats have no power. There's nothing to be angry about. Right. So there's no motivation. There's no incentive. Their hero is not on the ballot. So their enthusiasm is down. In fact, their hero is pissing them off every single day.
Right.
So Democrat turnout should be amazing. I mean, they should be lined up a month ahead of time. So anything that defeats or deflates that enthusiasm, that anger, I'm against. And so, I just want it to be channeled. I want the frustration to be channeled into motivation, not depression.
I think that's a very good pep talk, Coach. You mind if I call you Coach?
I try.
I know. All right. Our final story is more important than all of this, way more important than democracy.
It is the last story.
It is the last story. And it is the news that House Republicans are trying to rename part of the Kennedy Center for Melania Trump. The amendment on the Interior Spending Bill states that the Opera House located in the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts shall be known and designated as the First Lady Melania Trump Opera House. I mean, this is just wonderful, isn't it? I mean, really, this has kind of set the standard for a new cultural future.
So this happened. I mean, this amendment was introduced yesterday and it passed committee. This is going to happen, okay? The Opera House is going to be named the Melania Trump Opera House at the Kennedy Center. Now, a couple things I'll say about this. First of all, when you're going to name something, a performing arts center after let's say a MAGA Republican artist, there really aren't that many to choose from. I mean, this could be like the Kid Rock Opera Center or
Lee Greenwood
or the Kevin Sorbo or what's the Happy Days, Scott Baio,
John Voight.
The John Voight. Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't go there. Sylvester Stallone. I mean, the choices are limited. Okay, but the reason why this is Melania Trump is, I'll give you the backstory. Okay, it's Rick Grinnell. Okay, Rick Grinnell was installed as the director of the Kennedy Center, of course, who's the most disgusting person out there. But Rick Grinnell was the president, the head of the Log Cabin Republicans, the gay Republican organization. And who did they have as their guest speaker for the last couple of years at their annual dinners? Melania Trump, and he has paid, they have like their little PAC, their little organization. He paid Melania Trump $250,000 for each speech, which she came in and read a little 10-minute little thing off a piece of paper that somebody wrote for her and left, and got paid by Rick Grinnell's group $250,000 per clip. Now, what Rick wanted from that was, Secretary of State. He expected to be CIA director, something very high up, ambassador to UN. And he didn't get appointed to any of those things. He got appointed to run the Kennedy Center, which is like the shittiest job imaginable. But I guess as like the token gay guy in the Trump White House, you put him in charge of like an art center, right? That's what you would do, despite having no background in the arts. So here again, he's trying to ingratiate himself with going back to the well again by naming this after his hero, Melania Trump, who he thought was going to be his like in to a very prime appointment. That didn't work out, but maybe he's still holding out hope. Maybe he's thinking, if I get this opera house named after Melania, Secretary of State can't be far away if Marco Rubio washes out, right?
A lot of performers at the Kennedy Center have refused to perform because of the changes that have been made in leadership. Because he fired the whole kind of executive board and committee, didn't he? Just
all of them.
So it was pretty ruthless. I interviewed on the weekend show just gone Kat Abu-Ghazaleh, who's this kind of young congressional candidate for Illinois. And she's amazing. And she said something that I'd never really thought about before, and we really should kind of, flesh it out in the future. But she said fascists don't do culture. She said they
not very well.
It's very interesting, isn't it? It's like they don't have the ability to create art. They don't. I mean, Nazi uniforms maybe, but there's literally nothing there. And, she was talking about Fox doing their own equivalent of the Oscars, because really all these people want to be invited to the real Oscars, but they don't have the talent or the ability or the creativity to even enter into that world. And that was just a kind of final thought that I thought was interesting, this notion that fascists really are incompatible with the arts.
It's interesting. Democrats for years always complain that, they don't have their Rush Limbaugh, like they're not good at talk radio, like political talk radio. And Republicans always complain that they don't have enough people in the entertainment industry, right? So it's kind of like the two sides each have their little niche thing. I'm sure there must be lots of reasons for both. I think to be a good like talk show host, you have to like lie a lot and be bombastic and gaslight a lot, and maybe Democrats aren't comfortable with that. I don't know, but I mean, there's definitely something there in the psychology of it. But look, maybe now that it's the Melania Opera Center,
things are going to change,
turn things around.
Yeah, I think she loves opera as well, as far as I am aware. Okay, we have to finish, but grateful to everybody who's followed along, commented in the in the live chat, and don't forget you can comment down below. Please share the show. You can download the audio podcast that drops later on tonight, and we'll come back next Wednesday with another Uncovered. Thank you, Ron.
All right. See you next week.